Welcome back to Walking the London Road for the first proper podcast of the 26-27 campaign. This time, Oxford haven't done a thing that made us need to do another emergency one. Cheers for that, lads. Welcome back to, of course, Walking the London Road, as I said. Connor back with us. Connor, you and I are both knackered after the England game last night, but the ecstasy that we got from that win, I think, carried us both through the day.
It did. It did just about. And I'm doing this podcast, and I think I'm going to bed immediately after we've recorded this because I can't do it anymore.
I think I'm gonna maybe sniff some coffee beans and try and watch the Spain Portugal game, but we'll see how that goes. So obviously, there's kind of bits and pieces to talk about. Nothing major has happened in the world of Oxford United, but there's a few stories we want to kind of touch on and give you our thoughts. Before we get too far into it, of course, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. It massively helps out in the algorithm. Your support continues to be absolutely phenomenal. And yeah, we really appreciate every single bit you can give us. Also, follow us on socials at the apps you can see on screen. Connor's been putting out some very interesting content during the World Cup, mainly England flag watch, so I'd definitely recommend giving those a watch. So, let's get into some of the stories that we've got to cover for Oxford United. We'll start with the first official departure, because of course, you know, Owen Dale, Shumpelheta, etc., 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 all departed at the expiry of their contracts. But the first player to leave, who is still in the contract, is Matt Ingram. He has joined West Bromwich Albion on a permanent basis. Now, Connor, we're presuming this could be their number 3?
Yeah, you'd presume so. This is one of those that when the notification came through, you were like, I think that caught everybody off guard. Everybody was surprised, but then at the same time, most fans will just shrug their shoulders and said, "Oh, right, okay,
Yeah.
I guess that's one off the books." But yeah, you'd imagine that he's going there to be number 3, and whether he's been given some assurances that he can go into a coaching role, we don't know. But that's kind of what it looks like.
Yeah. I said on my own TikTok about his release that Matt Ingram's time at Oxford is really interesting, because obviously he came in thinking he was going to challenge Jamie Cumming as number 1. Didn't end up being that way. Had 2 honking performances in 24-25 against Swansea and in the final game of the campaign, also against Exeter in the FA Cup. And then strangely made up for those with 2 really good performances in the FA Cup against MK and Sunderland. So a really strange time for Matt Ingram.
Yeah, as you said, it's just a strange time. I don't think that we really saw much. We saw as much as we would like to, but that's only because of Jamie coming. But I think that his last performances, I think, that softened the attitude that I think that a lot of fans would have had of him. Because, as you say, he didn't have a great introductory first couple of games, did he? But you know, best of luck to him.
100%. And I think we both said when we did kind of the squad assessment going into next season that we were leaning towards the side of say thanks to Matt Ingram and bring in a keeper that can properly challenge Jamie Cumming on maybe the younger side of things to really give our number 1 a bit of competition. Now, the thing we all look forward to when this time of the year rolls around, that is the fixtures. These have been released. Now, we've already had one alteration to these, and that is this
Shambles.
game here. Yeah, absolutely. The visit of our Thames Valley neighbours Ding to the Casta has been moved from Bank Holiday weekend to Tuesday. I think it's the 9th of September at 7:45.
Yeah, I think it's Tuesday, the 8th of April. But I would like to say I don't understand when the EFL create these fixtures. I don't understand. They've got to surely already be in discussions with Thames Valley Police or any police force when they know that there's going to be high-profile derbies for that area. And then what if there's going to be any resource constraints? And the fact that it was literally the first game I think anywhere that was moved, like across the whole leagues.
Yeah.
And it's taken away from the fact that it's on a bank holiday weekend. Do you know how class that would have been? Reading at home on a bank holiday weekend. It would have been so good. It makes it slightly softens the blow slightly that it's going to be a Tuesday underneath the lights, albeit probably under dusk. Under the lights adds a bit of atmosphere to it, but it makes it a lot harder now, and for some fans to get to. But yeah, shambles. And if you're going to ask about the standout fixtures or the opening few games, I think on the prima face of it, you look at it and you would be forgiven for saying that it's on paper a tough run-in, because a tough start, because you got MK Dons who obviously finished second. They're going to have a fair amount of cash behind them, and they've got Mr. League One themselves, and they seem like what they're doing in League Two. It looks like that they're buying players that should really be at a championship level. You got Stevenage, who were playoff contenders last year and were in the playoffs. I think you got who will be fourth. Then you got third now will be Huddersfield, again a big club for the league. I think they'll be around the top six, but I don't think they'll be getting in there again this year. And then we got Leicester City, who will be arguably the first real proper test, the club that we came down with, and how they'll be looking under Russell Martin. It might turn out to be that will be the prime time to face them for Saturday after the transfer window closes, and he's still trying to get, because it will be a whole revamped squad, I imagine, him trying to implement his philosophy on there. And then that following Tuesday, we've got that lot down the A34 across the M4, and that is the service station between Slough and Cheveley.
I mean, so I will say on the Ding game that it was. I was reminded the fact that that weekend is also, I think it was Reading Festival. So I although it is kind of TVP killjoys, depriving us of Derby Day in the baking sun on bank holiday, I can also understand it because they've already got to be putting a lot towards that festival. Looking at the other fixtures, I mean, obviously Hillsborough, last game of the season.
Class.
Depending what our situation is, that could be absolutely unmatched. Leyton Orient on New Year's will be messy. I think you and I already said that could. I think there's going to be a lot of sore heads because it's a decent one.
The underrated one that could be quite messy if neither of us have international call-ups. Blackpool on Easter Monday looks fucking class.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully, obviously, the thing that will take that out is, at the very least, our Northern Ireland internationals. So, fingers crossed. Because, although, like you say, that could be absolutely unreal as an away weekend. I think some other ones. Bromley on the 29th.
That's horrific. That's on a Tuesday in December.
That is. Yeah,
Plymouth Argyle, we got there.
At least we got Plymouth on Boxing Day.
Yeah, opening day, Boxing Day, and Good Friday, all at home, which I think that's almost as good as it gets, really.
Yeah. And there's some other ones just to kind of tick off grounds that some haven't done before, like Luton is on at the minute on a Saturday afternoon.
That one's definitely getting moved to 12:30. It's definitely getting moved to 12:30.
Don't care. The fact is on a weekend, because last time I missed it and I was really, really annoyed. I got my ticket and then couldn't find my way to fucking Luton after work.
Have you ever done Luton?
No.
Oh, mate. The town's a shithole, but the away end is actually class. It's so good. Because I'm not sure if I've told you this before. So, Luton, you notice how it's small, like how the terrace coverings are small. So when it was built, Kenilworth Road was built 100 years ago. People on average were genuinely a foot smaller. So now the human species have grown by a foot. It keeps all the noise in, so that's why it sounds a lot louder when you're actually inside the stadium.
I thought you were going to say I can expect to brain myself just standing in that away end. There was also there was another. Let me just have a quick browse over. Oh yeah, of course. So Leyton Orient. Having them away is also on in the EFL Cup, so it's you can either choose to do one of those you haven't done Orient before, or do both, like I probably will do, because sod it, why not? But yeah, I think we were saying in the chat that as soon as kind of the fixtures come out, that's when we can get excited. That's when it feels like we're ready to rock and roll into a new campaign. Thinking about the fact that It seems that I think both our derbies will be on Tuesday nights again. That could be absolute carnage.
Yeah, yeah, it could be. TVP could have their work cut out.
Very much so. And like we said in our two early predictions, if we were to also get into some kind of playoff game against each other, that could be absolute carnage as well. Which, I mean, I said in our early predictions, I want us to go up as champions, but I would also, if we won it at Wembley against that lot, that would be maybe as good, just to beat them on the hallowed turf. But just to run through, because there's a lot of bits and pieces we want to mention. Former Oxford United man Shemi Poheta signed for Austin FC after his contract officially expired on the 1st of July. I think it's a move we both said was going to be a good one for him. Go to MLS, where he's going to be able to cause a lot of problems for MLS defenders and going to be less reliant on him to do the defensive side of his game, which he was not capable of doing at Oxford United.
Yeah, not only that, he's got a young family. He's going to go out there and enjoy the lifestyle. He's going to enjoy the fact that he doesn't have to pay ridiculous taxes on his wages. So he's going to be loving life.
So as one went out, one has arrived, and that is the signing of former Peterborough and now Hearts man Frankie Kent on a free transfer. The soon-to-be 31-year-old comes in, has taken the number 5 shirt, and this came out of nowhere, didn't it, Connor? There was no rumblings of this or anything.
It's so nice when that happens. It's so nice when you don't pick anything up on social media and then you just see it come through and you're like, how the hell, where did that come from?
So give us his time at Peterborough. Give us the rundown, because I've been in contact with a Hearts fan, but speak to us about what you kind of took from his time in Cambridgeshire.
Rock solid defender. Obviously this was when he was in his mid-20s, so arguably his physical presence was more what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, his physical presence was greater back then than it will be now, but his football intelligence would have obviously got a lot better. He was always a mainstay at the back for Peterborough, and that was during the times, like during the COVID years, and unfortunately during that campaign when they bottled it at Hillsborough. But either way, they were still magnificent that season. That's when they had a bit of a super team. I feel like that he's coming in as potentially a replacement to Hellick, being a right-sided centre half. Hellick seems to have a pattern. He gets relegated to League One and he looks to find another club in the Championship, which will at some point get relegated. So I expect to see him at Lincoln City or Bolton Wanderers sometime soon. But yeah, I think that this is a very solid signing. I think it's a shrewd signing. You look at his stats, although as you say, he didn't play that much in the Scottish Premiership last season. They are generally better than what we have at the moment. So it's an upgrade. This is the kind of signings that I think that we'll be making throughout the summer. Not too much heavy business, spectacular business, but it'll just be adding little bits here and there, because I think that based off the first couple of weeks and what we've seen around from other clubs, we're probably going to have to take Ed at his word that it's going to be more, this transfer window is going to be more about retention rather than recruitment.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, his lack of game time. He only started 9 matches in the Scottish Premiership last time out. 20 games in total, but like I say, only 9 starts. So like I said, I got in touch with Homer and Bart, a father and son Hearts channel on TikTok, and they were very kind enough to just give us a little bit of lowdown on what we can expect. There's similar to what you said, brilliant in the air, decent on the ball, lacks pace, but is able to make up for that with his experience. And it was quite funny. They were saying that before former Oxford man Stuart Finley went in the door, they were thinking he was probably their most important centre-back. Then Finley obviously goes in and is unmovable in that centre-half position. So that's a good appraisal from Hearts fans, and I think this is a shrewd bit of business. And like you say, some of the other kind of stats to look at is across his 20 games in total, he had a 96% aerial duel success rate, which for a lad who's 6 foot, when you're finding more and more strikers that are looking at 6'2", 6'3", is that's it's good he's able to make up for his height deficiency in his aerial duels.
Yeah, yeah. That might be kind of what we're lacking from last season as well, albeit we're going to be in a completely different league and a completely different standard. As you say, someone who has that agility as well as their footballing, intelligence, maybe he'll bring something different at the back line as well. In terms of leadership and being more vocal and bringing that experience at the back as well. I think it'll be vital. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a starter week in, week out for us throughout the season.
Obviously, like you say, depending on what happens to the current vice captain Michael Helik, who there was links to him and Kieran Brown. Helik's gone quiet after it was reported by a Polish journalist that he has a £6,500 or £6,500 release clause in his contract. That's gone a little bit quiet. There's recently rumours popped about Kieran Brown with interest from Millwall and Bolton, but again, that's just expressing interest, and clubs express interest in players all the time. So welcome Frankie Kent. Obviously we'll get a good our first sight of him during the pre-season games. And I think it's a smart addition, as we mentioned, because obviously Makoso departed, the potential departure of Helik, sort out the back line, and then we can deal with any potential centre-back departures with the thought of, okay, at least we've got Long, we've got Kent, with either Brown or Helik, maybe both stay. That's a pretty good League One four to play at centre half.
Yeah, it's good depth at League One level. I think that we should be pretty fine in that area. Be pretty satisfied if that's what it is come September.
Yeah, 100%. So a couple of other bits and pieces. We'll very quickly touch on this one because there's not an awful lot we can say, but it's worth noting that obviously last podcast we talked about the dismissal of Matt Bloomfield, and as expected, as reported long before Bloomfield was actually dismissed, Mike Dodds has joined Blackburn Rovers to serve under Tony Mowbray. Like I said, this was linked for a long time, and it's a shame, but also we were expecting a bit of a mix up in the coaching team. Chris Gunter is the current link to become Ramsey's number 2, and from one side of things, I think it's a bit of a shame because from everything I heard on the training ground, Dodds was absolutely superb. Obviously, that experience as a first team, as the main man, made him a superb assistant.
Yeah, it sounds like that. He was definitely the backbone to Matt Bloomfield and what he was doing. Mike Dodds always seemed like he came across as a decent bloke and genuine fella. I don't really think that he's a man built for being the head coach, and I think that spell at Wycombe proved that. But I mean, you can't knock the man for going to a championship club, especially when we're in League One. We're in League One now. You can't really blame him. He's probably upgraded his wallet quite nicely.
Yeah, and obviously I think he and Mowbray worked together before. Am I right in saying? So you'd expect kind of when Bloomfield's been sacked, he's not exactly going to sit around. He's got an opportunity to go and work with someone he's familiar with. So 2 more player movements to talk about before we get on to the final thing that broke literally today. First, how the fuck's he pulled this off?
That's
Miles
what I said.
Harris, after being linked with a move to Leyton Orient, has ended up at Middlesbrough. Obviously beaten finalists in the in the playoff final. I mean, we said in his early time at the club that obviously he's a very talented footballer. We expected him, if we stayed up, him to go elsewhere, but we really saw him drop off towards the latter stage of his time at our club. Just, partly I think it's because he was running to the ground. He's played every minute possible, but also there was at times it seemed a lack of engagement, maybe is the best way to put it.
I said that his agent must be the ghost of Mino Raiola, because how's he managed to bag a 4-year contract at Middlesbrough?
Mm.
And then the more I thought about it, I forgot how young he is. He's only 23 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So on a 4-year deal, you wonder whether the Middlesbrough are going to take their time and, put a real investment in him to see dominantly plays out on the left-hand side. So I wonder if they're going to try and, do what they've done with Morgan Whittaker, and also mainly really Morgan Rogers. And that's who
Mm-hmm.
they thought that Morgan Whittaker could become, in that, you can try and get him in the 10, but where he mainly applies his trade is out on the left hand side. And whether they can get him, as an understudy to Whittaker at the moment, and whether they can, go on to create him a multi-million pound player, and then potentially be someone that in the next 3-4 seasons can have a nice healthy sell on percentage. We don't know. So yeah, I mean, fair play to Harris, he's got there, but this isn't really a signing yet that I think that I'll be ready to judge, because I think it might even have to wait a couple of seasons before we can really see if that investment has paid off. Because as you say, last season, first couple of games, I thought he was outstanding, but it was really that lack of game time that he had at Brentford in the first half of the season. The fact that he had none, and he was just run into the ground basically every single game that he was there, because you can see that he was our best player at those first few games that you thought would just give him the ball every single time, and we'll wait for that Premier League quality to come out. But fair play to him for getting that contract, and maybe Middlesbrough have picked up, and on a free as well, have picked up maybe a nice little return on investment.
Yeah. As we mentioned, like I say, that he was so good in those first few games, and obviously it was in those first few games that we heard murmurings from the Brentford side that they saw him, that his future would be through the middle. So maybe that's a route they'll go down, because we know that Miles Harris isn't the most speedy of wide players, although perhaps Middlesbrough would deploy him differently to the way we did. So all the best to Miles Harris in his new move to Teesside. Again, how the fuck he's pulled that off? You said the ghost of Mino Raiola. I said, has he got Eric Choupo-Moting's agent pulling off that kind of deal? Another departure. This one is pending, so we haven't had it confirmed, but it pretty much is. And that is one that's had a little bit of confusion about it as to what kind of transfer it is. Ole Romani is Fortuna Sittard bound. He has not returned to England for pre-season training. He's been training in the Netherlands, ready for this move. Now, initially, this was reported by Munir Bulledin. I probably butchered that, so apologies. But a Dutch journalist who first noted, I think it was maybe Thursday, that Romane's that Sittard were interested in bringing in Ole Romani to bolster their attack. Then he later reported very quickly after that a medical was booked for today. That's reportedly all done, and as you can see it, Lorenzo Laporte is saying that it's pretty much all signed, sealed and delivered. It will be an initial loan with an option to buy worth around £700,000 plus a sell-on clause. So we're getting about half of what we paid for him 18 months ago from FC Utrecht if they are to activate the option. Connor, you and I have had spirited conversations about Ole Romani. And I'll just lay my cards on the table again, again, you and I have expressed some of our thoughts on our respective TikToks. For me, the fact Romani has only had 9 starts in 18 months here, only 2 in 25-26, tells me that this is a player that's not been given a fair shake. If you look at the number of games, I think Shemi Poheta started... I think he started almost double in 25-26 the amount of games that Ole Romani has in total in his 18 months at the football club. And Poheta's only been at the club an extra 6 months. So I think obviously there's a very talented footballer in there who's not been given opportunity. Obviously, I will admit he has not taken the chance as well as he could have done. But, if he goes, if he's had, what's it, three managers, two managers, because he was signed under Rowett, and then obviously Bloomfield came in. To me, it seemed that Bloomfield never really felt like giving him an opportunity to start.
No, see, I feel like I've been torn because I feel like in League One he could do some serious damage, and as you say, he hasn't really been given that opportunity. And then, as you say, two managers, he hasn't really started. That then makes me think: has he got a bit of an attitude problem? Is there something within his personality as to why he isn't starting? But yeah, I thought that, especially because he always seems to shine when he's playing for Indonesia. Like that level of opponent that he plays for Indonesia, he would be playing 75% of the time at League One level.
Mm-hmm.
So, however, overall, when you look that he was our record-breaking transfer signing, it just, for one reason or another, it hasn't worked. And I think that especially when not how bad it has been, but getting relegated when we made a couple signings of Indonesian internationals, and especially when we've been breaking transfer record after transfer record, it's just not looking good. And I think that with those past 4 transfer windows, I think it's just easier that we just break ties with those signings that we've made and we just start a clean slate with some of them, and we'll accept that we're going to have to lose monetary value on them. But if that is correct and that there is an option, I would have preferred it to have been an obligation to buy with 700,000 and 10 to 15% sell-on clause.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's too bad of a deal. So at least, as you say, at least we have the potential to accrue some funds back. But yeah, as I say, disappointed and ashamed that we won't get to see him at League One level. But it's probably for the best that he does move on, because I don't particularly think that he's happy here.
Mm. And I will say that obviously when Ole signed, this is one of the few instances where we were doing a podcast when he was signed, and we're also doing one when he's on from his departure. I will obviously acknowledge the fact that I was sceptical, and I did raise the fact that has this only been done because he recently. At the time, he recently declared for the Indonesian national team, and he'd not had a great season with FC Utrecht for those 6 months. So I, like I say, I completely understand that there are a lot in our fan base that think he's just a PR signing. He was just signed because he's Indonesian and all that kind of stuff. I like I say, I will stand by. I don't think he's been given a fair shake. Again, the amount of games that Shemi Boheta, that Sariki Dembele, that players who haven't, who have grabbed the ball by the horns, much less than Ole Romane, continue to get starts for the club. But I think we can both say all the best to Ole. We'll always have that. The goal he scored against, was it Derby last season, or in 24-25?
I don't think so. I think it was against a more rogue team.
Yeah, you're probably right. I can't remember who it is, but I remember going absolutely mental when he scored, and obviously came over to the East Stand and did his chin up celebration.
Yeah,
I can't remember who it was now. And obviously the almost goal against Stoke when he came on for his debut, which that would have been absolutely unreal. But all the best to Ole. The final thing to cover is something that literally broke 5 hours ago, and that is a bit of stadium-related news. The High Court has refused permission for judicial review relating to the planning permission for the new ground to be heard. Now the group whose name we will not speak have said they will continue to fight on, although it has been pointed out by Swish Yellow on Twitter that they're looking at a minimum 6-figure legal purse needed for whatever next challenge is they want to try and lodge, even though the reality is this was it was not about the merits of this. It was all about whether the council acted unlawfully. And I jokingly said it when I think it was there was a story previous to this that came out about the judicial review, and I think it might have been when that lot said they were gonna continue to fight on. I said if they put their if they put the energy they have into trying to fight the stadium into anything else, they would have been really, really productive.
Yeah. I'm kind of. I know I posted something on social media earlier, but I'm kind of past caring about this lot now. Just get the diggers in the ground quickly while you can. Just start while you can.
Yeah.
As I said, we got 2 years left at the at our 3-sided shithole, and it's becoming more increasing. The probability that we're going to have to find a ground share even for 6 months is becoming increasingly likely. So it takes, although not great, it takes up every day that that we haven't got diggers in the ground, and we're not, tearing the place up so we can lay foundations and footings. So yeah, get the diggers in, lads, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, 100%. I know we've said it time and time again. There's been so many points at which I thought, okay, is this when we're going to start clearing the grounds or whatever? But it's not yet. Hopefully, this, like we said, this is the moment where we can finally get spades in the ground and get this thing built. Because I just said it way back. The club's assertion that it will take the 2 years they plan to build this thing is mightily, mightily optimistic, given how long it takes to build anything else in Oxford. I hope I'm wrong, but other projects around the city haven't exactly been the speediest.
Yes, no, it's just NIMBYism in general. It's just everything, especially in Oxford, and the fact that there's a lot of greenbelt in the county just doesn't make it easy. But they didn't really have any. They didn't have any objections to an eyesore of a building, a massive red building. About 2 minutes down the road, did they? Or any of the industrial buildings which are being built around that area? But And they also didn't have any objections to the thousands of houses that are being built in the field across the way. But, I guess that's not our business, Sam.
Yeah. Said time and time again, the fact that for certain projects it's come, please do what you like. And then certain accommodation is never fully filled. Just look at the one around the back of St Aldate's. And then other projects, it takes, it's like pulling teeth. But that's unfortunately the bureaucracy that exists in trying to build anything in the UK. But I think that's a kind of good summation of all the kind of stories that have appeared over the last kind of fortnight around our football club. Just to cap off, are there any kind of final bits and pieces you wanted to bring up, you wanted to mention? Because obviously we're still kind of in the period of time where the players are back in training. They had their, I think it was second session with Ramsey today, so we're building up to those pre-season games. Obviously, first they'll head out to Spain for their warm weather training.
Yeah, they'll head out to Spain. It'll be interesting to see when we can get some media in there and we can hear what the players are thinking of Ramsey's coaching sessions, his tactics, what he's like as a person, his man management skills. So it'll be very interesting. It is also worth mentioning, I was wondering if you were going to bring it up, but before we came on, it's been reported by James Ray from the 72 that it looks like that Jordan Thomas from Cheltenham, he's going to be our next signing of the summer window. Okay. Right winger from Cheltenham. He's an Oxford boy. I was going to say,
he's a local lad, isn't
he? Yeah, he was. Yeah, he's been at Bath and he's been to I think it was at Didcot, Bath, and he's been to Cheltenham as well. He's a solid player at League Twos, but I hope to God that this works out and this isn't another Will Goodwin signing. But if we paid a hefty fee for Will Goodwin, then this signing will be on a free. So we shall see. We shall see what happens there. Next time we're on, we might have our second player.
hopefully, because obviously that's thank you for reminding. We didn't mention that obviously two of the links we had to the club were Kyrie Slisby and Callum Slattery. Of course, Slattery is also a local lad. Neither of them ended up coming to us because so Lisby signed for Ding. I think it was 4 days after Bloomfield was sacked, and Slattery was a little after that. But I have I would suspect that the uncertainty over kind of the structure of our managerial situation and what's going on at the club made them think, oh, maybe it's not the best decision to go in there. Or, Kyrus Liz being sold, okay, I'm 100% want to go and work for Matt Bloomfield, and then he gets sacked, and he's then go, oh, okay, guess that's up in the air. But that's unfortunately the way of transfers. But like you say, we will back hopefully with another local lad back in the door. Not quite the local winger I thought we were signing. Where are we? A year ago at this point. But of course, we'll speak at that if it were to come to pass. Thanks so much, folks, for watching this week's episode of Walking the Line of Road. Of course, we'll be back with you next week with another roundup of all the stuff going on in the world of our football club. As ever, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Massive helps out in the algorithm. As mentioned, ring the notifications bell to get notified first when we upload a new episode, and follow us on socials at the actual can see on the screen. And like I say, Colin and myself are doing a lot of content on TikTok, which I think you'd also massively enjoy. So please be sure to check us out there. And we'll see you next week.